Hey guys, how's it going? I'm here bringing you another EX+Analysis video. Don't forget that in the video's description you can find a playlist of my previous EX+Analysis videos and a playlist of my tier list videos starting from January 2020. For this video, I'll talk about Jag and Ramza. At the end of the analysis, there's going to be a should you pull section giving you my recommendation on pulling or not. I'm going to go over their strengths and weaknesses, as well as which artifacts you should be aiming for. Finally, we'll see together if they are worth investing and how much you should invest in them. Before we begin, I want to remind you that these are just my opinions and you should always do some research on your own before deciding on things. Hopefully this video will help you on that. I am planning to purple Ramza immediately, and I also plan to ticket pull for Jag, so you can expect the showcase video for Ramza and maybe even Jag, which I will link in this video's description. So let's begin. We are starting off this video with Jag because I am leaving the best for last. In your screen there is a summary of Jag's kit that is just enough in order to get familiar with his kit. I did not include potencies because that would just make things more complicated. His EX and his Deliverance attacks gets upgraded through his EX Plus investment, so we'll talk about them in just a bit. In his kit summary, I forgot to add that his Brave and HP Plus attacks can also trigger Deliverance if they break the target and only then. If you want, you can pause the video to get familiar with Jag's attacks and buffs before we continue further. Jag is a selfish melee DPS that can dish out huge amounts of damage. His skill count is low, but he can mitigate that thanks to his EX granting him a free skill after every use, and also through his HP Plus attack, which can take advantage of his Deliverance follow-up skill. He's probably the most risky unit we've had in Omnia up until now, because he reduces his own HP down to 1 and relies on his evasion and self-healing to stay alive. Thanks to his Deliverance, Jag is able to change skills and deal huge amounts of damage to the boss as long as you want to spend his skills, that is. He's an amazing shaver for both single target and AoE situations, and his EX, which has a normal recast speed, is able to hit all enemies for total HP damage twice. As a bonus, Jag gets the last stand passive through his EX Plus investment, which helps him survive easier as long as his HP is over 50%. It is not an exaggeration to say that Jag is the next power creep in terms of pure DPS units. Recommended artifacts for Jag are 108 attack and positive swordsman boost 2 stars to further increase his attack for his Deliverance, while 330 max brave is a good consolation price. Now let's see if he is worth investing in or not. If Jag is one of your favorite units, then by all means go ahead and max him out. If you are just looking for strong units for your roster though, while trying to maximize the value of your resources, then you have more things to consider. Jag is a selfish melee DPS unit with strong damage per turn potential and turn manipulation, which is something not many units have. Like I said earlier, Jag is arguably the next power creep of DPS units in the game, and if you manage to get your hands on his EX, you should probably definitely invest in it. Now let's see how much you should invest in him if you decide to do so. Giving a book to Jag increases the battery of his EX based on HP reduced by an additional 100%, and also tremendously increases its brave potency. His next skill after every EX cast becomes free. A really simple but good book upgrade for Jag. 1 ingot gives Jag the usual 60% max brave and 40% attack permanent boost. If you invest 2 ingots in Jag, he begins the stage with his every ounce of strength buff, and his EX buff is ready from the get-go. As a bonus, he gains the last stand passive, which helps with his survivability a lot. Having his EX ready from the start means that Jag can bypass the longer wait of the initial cast that most units have to go through. Finally, investing 3 ingots in Jag is where the real money is. His EX battery can overflow up to 120% of his max brave, and the brave battery potency gets a moderate boost. The brave hits are increased from 5 to 8, and the brave stolen can overflow up to 120%. The most important part though, in my opinion, is that his Deliverance follow-up attack gets changed as well. The brave hits are increased from 4 to 6, It gets a potency boost and 120% overflow. Finally, he gets access to his Brave and HP++ skills, which can also trigger Deliverance if they break your target. I'm sure you all know by now that Jack must be maxed out, and anything less would be a waste of your resources. If you do manage to get his EX but you don't want to invest in him, then a single book will make him good enough to place in a Dimensions End stage. And we are finally done with Jack. Now let's move on to my boy, the best boy, who is no other than Ramza Beowulf. Finally, one of my favorite characters, EX+ is almost here. Ramza is one of those base EX units that were viable in early to mid chaos thanks to his free turns from his HP++ attacks. Ramza was effectively giving more turns to your other units to deal damage while also dishing out moderate damage himself. His EX+ is just a cherry on top, meaning it capitalizes on Ramza's strengths and also fixes his biggest problem, which was maintaining his shout buff. First of all, going over Ramza's weaknesses, in my opinion, he still needs to use shout twice at the start of the fight in order to get access to his HP++ free turns, and his shaving outside of his EX is very limited. As we all know, Ramza offers no party healing because he's not that kind of support, unless of course you hook him up with Rosa's or Porom's Sphere. Ramza offers some good party utility with good auras and buffs and multiple options for battery. He becomes really turn efficient with mostly using his free HP attack and his high damage EX, which now increases the duration of shout by 2 turns, helping with Ramza's longevity immensely. We are going to talk about his EX+ upgrades in more detail in a bit. This support unit is simple but effective through and through. Ramza is the ultimate HP attack bot and I just love it. Recommended artifacts for Ramza are 108 attack and 330 max brave to capitalize on his EX battery and damage. I prioritize 330 max brave over his strongest Squire boost because it's a last wave passive and Ramza can benefit more from raw stats. Now let's see if Ramza is worth investing in or not. If Ramza is one of your favorite units, then by all means go ahead and max him out. Favorites before meta, like I always say. Like I said earlier, I would max out Ramza even if he was a bad unit, which he's not. Ramza is an offensive support that fits in almost any team thanks to his free turns and amazing EX. Even so, I am inclined to say that Ramza is by no means necessary to clear any content right now because there are more supports already in the game that are stronger and more versatile than Ramza. He needs to be in a team with a unit that can offer healing to your team since he cannot do it himself. Leo, for example, is a perfect partner for Ramza. I always like to use Ramza with Beatrix and Agrias for my 3-knight team because those 3 units complement each other perfectly. My final recommendation is to hold off on investing in Ramza unless you really want support units for your roster. Now let's see how much you should invest in him if you decide to do so. Ramza's EX+ upgrades are quite a mouthful, so please bear with me as I try to present them to you to the best of my abilities. Investing a book in Ramza allows him to battery himself by 50% of his attack before casting his EX skill, and that battery can overflow up to 120% of his max brave. The skill gets a tremendous potency increase and it can overflow up to 150% of his max brave. It now deals 50% splash damage and applies the Enervate debuff to all enemies. Ramza also gets a potency increase on his Brave+, Brave++, and Brave+++ attacks, with more battery for all variants. His Brave++ attack now becomes a free turn like his HP attack. His HP plus and HP++ attacks get increased battery and they change to a Brave plus HP attack with 120% overflow. Finally, Ramza's HP+++ attack gets a battery boost as well with 120% overflow. The Brave hits are increased from 1 to 2 and it gets a slight potency increase as well. That was just his fucking book upgrade. And I'm already tired. Moving on to his 1 ingot investment, Ramza gets a 60% max brave and 40% attack boost. His shout buff duration is increased by 2 turns whenever he uses his EX. With 1 stack of shout active, Enervate changes to Enervate Plus, which increases the battery by an additional 20% and the overflow limit by an additional 30%. So far, all of Ramza's investments are packed. Investing 2 ingots in Ramza allows him to begin the stage with 1 stack of each of his buffs, and he grants his generic attack and brave regen buffs to him and his party. If Shout is at 2 stacks, his Enervate Plus changes to Enervate Plus, which increases the battery by an additional 30% and the overflow as well as the splash damage by 10% both. We're almost done, guys, I swear. Finally, if you invest 3 ingots in Ramza, his EX brave hits increase from 2 to 6, and it gets a tremendous potency increase. If Shout is at 3 stacks, his EX becomes Enervate Plus, which increases the battery by an additional 50%, the overflow limit by an additional 10%, and the splash damage by 20%. As a cherry on top, Ramza now gets Brave back based on 30% of the HP damage he did with his EX, which helps him defend himself from breaks. I can't believe we went through all that in one go. The Tonberry troop must have had a big headache making Ramza's new infographic. In conclusion, Ramza can work with just a book, specifically for Dimensions End. If you want to keep using him in Chaos though, you can either take the budget option of 1 ingot or max him out for more damage with 3 ingots. Personally, I don't see why anyone would use Ramza without him being maxed out, especially for recent Chaos, but it's nice to have more options for him, I guess. Now let's see if we should pull on this banner or not. After everything we've said about Ramza and Jack, what do you think? Should you pull for either or both of them? Let me know in the comments below. This is a high value banner in my opinion, and if you don't already have Ramza's EX, I would definitely recommend you to consider pulling with gems. Unless Jack is not a favorite character though, and you already have Ramza's EX, then I couldn't recommend to be ready to PD with gems. If you are a new player trying to build your roster, then I would definitely pull on this banner if you think you can handle Jack's reckless gameplay. Me personally, I'll definitely do some ticket pulling on this banner because I really need a physical DPS. And that was it. I hope you stuck with me until the end and that you enjoyed watching or listening to this video. Don't forget to drop a like and also consider subscribing if you like my content. If you have any suggestions on things you want me to cover, I would very much like to hear about them. Also, if you think I forgot to mention anything, let me know about that as well. Take care guys, and I'll see you in my next video. See ya!